We continue the endnotes of the Epistles of Manuskihar in chapter 9, verse 5. Would a bard have said it is proper? Compare chapter 6, verses 9 to 11. Verse 6. Would a bard's teaching have said that it is proper? Compare chapter 7, verses 16 to 18. Verse 7. And they are again deposited. This shows that the places for ablution during the Berashnum ceremony were, 1,000 years ago, the same as now, namely stones deposited on the ground, not holes dug in the ground, as directed in Vendidad 9, verses 13, 14, and 16. They are, in fact, the stones are hard material directed to be deposited at the holes in the Vendidad, chapter 9, verse 29 and 30, but they go by the old name for the holes, mung. And verse 8, that consist in this washing, which is thoroughly preserved as they keep it in practice. This string of arguments appears to be quoted from the epistle to which the writer is replying, but as they are separated from their context, it is difficult to understand the exact line of argument or to be sure that they are translated correctly. Verse 10, and not for the reason that Mediokma's teaching is more preservative, as to one right, from pollution or sin. Verse 11, they shall then wholly accept, that is, when the dissimilar case arises, or when it is manifestly more efficient. Now, a weird phrase that I was raised with was, as far as it is translated correctly. Well, what if the interpretations have came into it, or it was a compilation of sacred text, which is, implied by the term Bible. That's something I was reminded of. Verse 12, that every single customary part is to be washed for 3 times. See chapter 6, verse 7. Verse 15, that in a doubtful matter there should be a high priest to consult about the matters in doubt. So in general, we should have a direct understanding of the scriptures or direct access to refer to things, but sometimes a practice leader is important enough to consult. And chapter 10, verse 1, the flow of inward prayer, reading Vog, Ragisnoi, but J omits the first letter, and thereby converts the word into upper das isni, want of leisure, but unto the priestly at once. J has merely the statements, or when deliberation and conjecture become at once needful. Verse 2, which is written by me on this account. Just like talking, you don't write just to write. J has merely the statements which are in deliberation and conjecture become at once needful. Oh, wait, that was the... No, under the priestly at once. Okay, the count, which word remind me on this account, is reading Hana Vra'i as in J. The other manuscripts have Hana Law. Is written after well-weighed Saktako observations, or perhaps strict observations here and strict observers further on, owing to that other writing to which he is replying, and then the desire, reading Adin Gam, but this is doubtful, to sprinkle the Husvarus verb, Zeri Kuntano, to sprinkle, is not found in the glossaries, but it is readily traceable to the Chaldean Wazert. It says ZRQ with questions in it, and I don't know if they were trying to render the endnotes over into characters with the computer and something went wrong there. Incorrect presentation, reading Arashniko Ko Dehisni. The same priestly man, meaning his brother, Zodsparum, who assured wisdom, the usual Pahlavi phrase for the Avestan Asno Kratus, our instinctive wisdom. See that Astani Danik, 40 verse 3. Till now, assuming that Vol stands for Vol. Verse 5. Other priestly men and religious observers, implying that there is more learning, there is manifest in an erroneous teaching, the more necessary it is to submit it to careful examination. Well, if there is a problem with the teaching, being able to direct the reasoning is a very important skill. Verse 6, for if even he retorts to a further statement, reading Frago Vakpato Yakavi Muned, and assuming that the last word stands for Pato Isted, pertaining to high priests in the spiritual existence, that is, such as have passed away. It is then, still in verse 9, it is then supposed by him that they are Indar, Saru, Na Kasiya, Ta'u Irev, and Za'irik. These be the last 5 of the archdemons, who are the special opponents of the archangels, being not corruptions, different language versions, that'd be a better way to put it, but of the Avestan names. Indra, I thought it's Indar. Indra. Maybe again they corrected it. Like I was reading of a text, and I think at some places they correct Indra to be Indu, or vice versa. But anyways, the names Indra, Sa'uru, Na Unga Itya, Ta'uru, Za'ereka, Sibundihis 127. The name of the first archdemon, Akuman, is omitted here, probably by the mistake of some copyist, as 6 names are wanted to make up the number of the archangels, exclusive of Ahura himself, who are most mighty. J continues as follows: of the demons, written with the wretchedness, Vakari, and savageness of such as those, the oppressiveness and disaster of a decree of that description and its original perversity, and so on. Verse 10, which there is so much manifest in the decree which was so written as to appear to be directly derived from the teachings of the commentators, but at the same time so warped their statements as to lead astray. Hence it might be compared to the conversion of an archangel into a fiend through a mental hallucination, as mentioned in verse 9. Verse 11, or that which is resembling the same decree. J omits the last words. Verse 13, not specially owing to unattainable statements of the shattered religion of Mazda worshippers. Reading Hana Gereng, but it may also be read un adarog, that undeceitful, and Zodsparam is the injurious writing of that priestly man. And of course, conflicts between brothers would be, more central to these sorts of issues, right? Chapter 11, verse 1. Not Epistle 2, but the one that preceded it. Okay, comes with the second epistle. Well, maybe the order was mixed up, right? In terms of what we have. Like, some of the stuff in the Bible, not only was it edited, like, we don't actually have Paul's epistles. But it's possible that 2 Timothy was first. Well, I mean, when you have the epistles of Timothy, for example, you might have 2 Timothy, which would be 1 Timothy, or 3 Peter, which would be the first, and then 3:2:1 or 3:1:2 or I forget. But anyways, and making aware of the deliverance from pollution by means of the Bereshnoum ceremony, which is for my further epistle, mentioned in verse 2, probably referring to epistle 2, till the arrival of which, or that of epistle 3, they were to act as directed by the priest he sends with this epistle. Verse 3, if that same priestly man, his brother Zodsparam, verse 4, may diffuse this arrangement properly. This intended visit to Stir Khan is also mentioned in Epistle 2, chapter 5, verse 5, chapter 6, verse 4 and 6, chapter 7, verse 3, and it comes with this epistle, verse 5. This is being apprehensive that the personal interference might lead to altercations derogatory to his dignity. He prefers to try the effect of the writing in the first place. The temporary epistle he referred to could not have been Epistle 2, as that was written after Epistle 3, and was the further epistle promised in verse 6. So there might be a whole missing epistle here. 6, and Yazdan Panak, or perhaps Yazdan Pahnak. This was a common Parsi name in former times, as it is found in 2 of the Pahlavi inscriptions in the Kanhera caves, dated 1009. See the Indian Antiquary, volume 9, page 266, 267, and the very similar name Yazd Panah occurs as the name of a Parsi convert to Christianity who was put to death about 541 of the Common Era. See Hoffman's Aus Zuge, Aus Sirichen, Akten, Persitcher, Martyrer, a man who is instructed, assuming that Din Hardo stands for Zin Harido. Verse 7, are through myself, if I should come personally. Verse 8, they should not be molested before, referring probably to further matters of complaint, which he did not think it advisable to notice seriously until a present controversy was settled. Verse 9, benediction of the Revelation, 16 of the Mazda worshipping religion reach a climax, and may the eminence of you listeners to the primal religion, primal as in, it is how it is, beyond the human alterations, right? But here we're referring to what they call orthodox. But they're referring to the formalisms of complaint. Did not think it was seriously until the present was settled. But, okay, eminence of you listeners, we read Nyok Shi Darano, one word, instead of Avak Shi Darano. 10. The correct writer and scribe is ordered that he do not alter any of the words Marit. Remember that last line of the book of Revelations? Well, the book of Revelations is one of the first written things in what they call the New Testament. It's written the same, whether it was written before or after the Christian book of John in 19 chapters, that was basically a rewrite of something about Bacchus, like 99% the same thing, just Ihsu instead of Bacchus in so many passages, and there are more changes than that, but, but we read men instead of moon. But my point in bringing that up is that it wasn't referring to the whole of the Bible, it was referring to that text. And it wasn't saying that there wouldn't be any other spiritual writings or something ever again that were valid either. But people act like that too. It's like, oh, no. And it was an apocalyptic text. It wasn't quite the same thing as inspired or revealed. Although a person can read it and think that it was inspired. So, also in verse 10, so that it may come to him, to Zadsparam, this copy that was mentioned in Epistle 2:7:1. 11, peace, reading Shlom, as in J. Other manuscripts have Shnuman, propitiation, the two words being nearly alike in Pahlavi letters. And happiness of the powerful, reading Patugano. J has Pad Vandano connections by inserting a stroke. Verse 12 has written it in the day and the month of Spendermod. The 5th day of the 12th month of the Parsi year, as in Epistle 3, which was evidently written after further consideration, is dated in the 3rd month, AY 250, so this must have been written about AY 249. The date of this epistle, therefore, corresponds to the 15th of March, 1881. And Epistles of Manuskihar 2, chapter 1, verse 2, the epistle that came from you in the month of Van. The 8th month of the Parsi year, which must have been AY 249. See Epistle 1, 11, 12. This month corresponds to the interval between the 11th of November and the 10th of December in 880 of the Common Era. But it's evident from chapters 7, verse 2, 8, verse 1, that this reply was written about the same time as Epistle 3, that is, in the interval between the 14th of June and the 13th of July, 881, which Nivshahpuhar. This appears to have been the original form of the name Nikshahpuhar or Nishahpuhar, applied both to a man, Epistle 1, 4, 15, and 17, verses 15, 17, and to a city in Khorasan. And in this place, it is not quite certain whether a man or a city is alluded to. Well, cities were named or renamed to people. The text as it stands in the manuscript is as follows. Namako Zitano Den Bedana Avano Mun Nivshahpuhar Nipistano Varmudo Va Mado. This can be translated as in our text if the word va be omitted, but if this word be retained and moon be changed into min, the translation would be as follows. The epistle which was ordered by you to write in the month of Van from Nivshahpuhar, and which came, now it is evident, from Epistle 1 that Zantsparam must have been in Sirkan for some time previous to the date of that epistle. See chapter 1, verse 12, 5, verse 3, to his having been formerly at Sarax, and among the Tugazgus, that is in the extreme east of Khorasan. It is therefore just possible that he may have been at Nivshahpuhar on his way to Sirkan in the south of November. Now, beyond Khorasan and beyond Syria is said to be the when Gog and Magog break loose, So beyond Afghanistan and down into Syria, Arabia. So that would actually back. Well, I'm thinking something else, but that would actually back up the biblical idea that the Russians are to conquer Israel. Is ordered to write and something missing by me from something missing. J and BK attempt to fill in the blanks with the words Keshvar Arg, the value of the realm, but the original text probably stood thus, and was received by me from so-and-so, the names having been torn off in some intermediate manuscript. And, okay, verse 4, I apprise your priestly lordship that in this interval, Tahiko, since he heard from his correspondent, the word cannot be Tiskako, 9 days, as that would not tally with the dates of epistles 1 and 3. Well, people write things with their own hands, it's rather than as revealed or something. They do form unintentional contradictions as well as those. That would be what you'd call intentional. But the intended, you could say, would be as such. Verse 7, and that ordinance, referring probably to the Beres Num ceremony, which Zantsparam wished to dispense with in many cases. Verse 9, and this too should be observed among the requirements. J omits the phrase that when the fattiness, reading mesak or miskha, but it may be masagi, squeezing, but the law of the realm of various kinds. J has merely the words, even then the opinion of the high priest for the realm, which gives a reverse meaning to the text. the law. To make him decide, then it is not proper. It appears from this that when a supreme high priest became very old, his worldly duties were put in commission. By being entrusted to a committee of 4 of the most learned priests. See also how both the Shia and the Sufis tend to have this 4 deputies of the main spiritual leader motif, which that's probably where they got it from, right? But the opinion of the superannuated high priest was still supreme in spiritual matters, though not to be trusted in worldly affairs. Or they could be following the same base religious tradition rather than taking influence from other spiritual paths of conservative faith or something, right? Things remind us to trust in worldly affairs. Okay. And has attained, declared by me under the assembly which has been deliberated at Shiraz, whether Manuskihar had specially gone to hold this assembly before writing Epistle 1, see 1:3:13, or perhaps he went there and it was called by other than him, or he came there and deliberately for that purpose or not, who knows. The assembly of the Tugazgus, mentioned in verse 12, the manuscripts have Tugzguz in Pazand. Masaude states in 943, the Common Era, that Tagazgaz were a powerful Turkish tribe who dwelt between Khorasan and China, in and around the town of Kusan, and not very far from the supposed sources of the Ganges. They had become Manichaeans, Manu lives, after having been converted from idolatry to the heretical form of Mazda worship taught by Mazdak, see Masaudi, edited by Barbier de Maynard, Volume 1, page 214, 288, 299, quoted at length in a note, Shayas 6-7. It would seem from the allusion in our text that Zad Sparam had recently been among these Tagazgaz and might have imbibed some of their heretical opinions so as to lead the controversy with his brother and the Orthodox people of Sirkan, that they have recently been in the extreme northeast of Khorasan. It is further shown by the allusion to Sarax in chapter 5, verse 3. And one of the things that we see is that sometimes we get sectarianism because there is a knowledge that not everyone has. I apprise your priestly lordship that in this interval, Tahiko, verse 4, says he heard from his correspondent the word cannot be Tiskako, 9 days. Cases.